All right, what's up, everyone? I hope you're doing well, having an awesome day. As you are coming in, again, please let us know where you're coming in from, and specifically with your course creation journey, whether you have a course already out there or if you are thinking about a course, like what topic. When we do these live streams, honestly, our genuine desire is just to have an open and honest conversation, support one another, share resources, share tips, all of that kind of stuff. And Today I am with our colleague, my friend, Cecilia Racine, who is a bit under the weather and a huge trooper despite this. So, Cecilia, I'm so thankful for you as a colleague, as a friend. I I know we share this and we talk a lot about this in our mastermind, but this idea that like when good people doing good work in the world also have success, I think is just, I feel like there's so much joy in that, and you're one of those people. And Yeah, I'm just so thankful for you, and I'm grateful that we get to have a conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sorry my voice isn't at its best, but it's great to be here and I'm happy, to share. And as you mentioned, I love, working with you and there's a lot of parallels in our story. So happy to share anything that, might be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So even just to, I guess, bookend some of this stuff, how long have you been a course creator for at this point?
So I'll go back just a tiny bit, all through grad school and after for about 15 years, I worked in agencies and that was always immigrant based. Like if they're, I speak Spanish, I'm an immigrant. So it just was a natural fit and it really developed my clinical skills. And then I went into private practice in 2016 and was just kind of like throwing things at the wall, like, let's see what sticks. And one day, an attorney called me and said, "Can you do an immigration eval?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And then it was like, okay, I don't actually know how to do those, but I'm confident I know how. And so over the next few months, that attorney and others sort of helped me. And I found that a couple of things steered me this way. There was a lot of interest. Like I would say, in like maybe your Facebook group or other groups, like, "Oh, what do you do? What's your private practice?" And I would say immigration evals, and a lot of people had interest in that. And then at the same time, the product I was seeing, I would see clients who had gone to see someone else and had paid a good amount of money for a very low quality product.
Mm.
And I thought, I like to think the best. So I think, these therapists out there, they were doing their best, but they just didn't have the right training.
Mm.
So that led me to create a training. And now it's one course, but back then it was two different, two halves. And that was in the end of 2018.
Man, what a journey. Like 2016, 2018. There's a little nuance, but before that, Amani, hi. Amani is joining us, and no, we've got some others. As you guys are coming in, again, please let us know where you're coming in from. You can leave a comment on YouTube or LinkedIn. I can see the comments all the way on here. So, again, we want to make this like super interactive. So, Cecilia, this is, I think, like a little nuance which you're speaking about, which you know, I feel like the best courses are a reflection of the work that we've already done, right? So it's not like you were creating an immigration eval course not having done any immigration evals, right? You had built like an entire private practice and now a group practice doing these immigration evals. And I think the other benefit, and I would love for you to hear your thoughts on this, but the other benefit of it is you're able to speak to nuances, and also especially as like the landscape changes in various ways.
Yeah, it's a very interesting time in immigration, and this is not our first go around with policies. And one thing I was able to realize is back in like 2021, I would start sending evals, the same evals I had been sending for years, and they were getting rejected for these like tiny little reasons. And so talking to lawyers and also just trying to be really creative in how I wrote my evals differently so they wouldn't be able to sort of pick on those little things. And once it worked, like once I started seeing results like, oh, that did work, I immediately went to the course and updated the course. So I'm my own like experiment always, and I'm seeing like this is working better. I'm getting better results from this. A lot of feedback, like the clinical part I own, but this is immigration law. So I'm always, okay, what's the legal standard and how can like what should we write to help you get to that legal standard? So it's a lot of interaction with the attorneys and then taking that and passing it on to students and trying to keep things updated and sort of up to date. Like first I'll experiment with it. Like, did this actually work? Did this have a good outcome? And once I'm confident of that, then I share it.
Yeah, which I think it's really nice because they're essentially you have a sandbox by which to try things, and then you can then implement it, i.e., through your course at scale. I think, which is what sort of the optimal setup is. Um, so you said 2016 is when you started the private practice,
Mhm.
transitioned to doing immigration evals, uh, and then eventually got to this point where you were starting, or at least had a thought like, I wonder if there are other therapists that want to start these immigration evals. How can I like support them? I don't know for you, but for me, and I've struggled a lot with like imposter syndrome, or just feeling like, who am I to be teaching this thing? And even for me as like a course creator, I think I put off my podcasting course for almost 5 months because I just felt like, one, I felt like others would judge me. I felt like there was somebody that knew more. Those I think were the two main things. I wonder if you struggled with that at all, and if so, like how did
Oh,
you navigate that? So
for sure. Because I thought I've only been doing this for 2 years. I need 20 years of experience
yeah.
before. I never thought of it as like, we'll all learn together. But at the same time, I remember when I started this and I had good input. I had done a lot of different kind of assessments. So I wasn't starting from nothing, but just looking at that blank screen and being like,
Mm,
now what? Now what do I write? And how useful it would have been for me, like the amount of time I would have saved had I had a course or something. So I thought, what do I wish I had had 2 years ago? And to
mm,
be able to sit down and have like templates and guides and stuff like that. So that was one thing that helped me kind of get over that. And honestly, what it was, and I kind of touched upon this earlier, I was doing updated evals or redoing evals for clients who had paid a good amount of money for really low quality work.
mm,
One client came to me and I said, "Well, show me the old eval," and they had one piece of paper, and I was like, "No, show me the old evaluation."
mm,
And there was still one piece of paper, and they had paid, $800-900 for this. And I thought, this population is so vulnerable. I don't want them to get scammed. And so they're going to pay, if this is necessary, they're going to find the money, they're going to pay for these evaluations. They should definitely be getting high quality work. And
mm,
so maybe the problem is that we as therapists have not been trained how to do this. So seeing those clients, I would have been happy just keeping my head down and having my practice, but seeing those clients really like tugged at my heartstrings because I knew like I'm never going to be able to see everyone. I can't see everyone all over the country, and more people should know about this. So that kind of pushed me forward too. And just like I said, my own wishes of what I wish I had had when I started, because there was no course to take, there was nothing for me.
I'm so glad you said that because I think this is a pattern I notice as well. I think most of us, when we're thinking about creating an online course, uh, both struggle with like the excitement of it as well as feeling like we're some kind of imposter on some level, like who are we to be creating it? But uh, I think one little nuance I've seen is the the clinicians and the course creators that are able to like take almost like a 40,000 or take many steps back and say, how can, versus like what I'm just feeling, how can this course be of service to others? I think it's like, but it's so real because initially that fear of like, this feels about me and how I'm going to be judged.
Right.
Um, yeah, but it's, I don't know. I wonder if you've kind of seen that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing as you were talking that I thought is like you really open yourself up to like I've gotten excellent feedback from past students like, hey, this part wasn't really helpful.
Mm,
like,
How
I'm
did
not gonna lie, that hurts. I mean, it
yeah,
doesn't hurt, but it's hard to hear because I was
yeah,
like, "Really? I thought that was the best part," or, "I thought that was
yeah,
super helpful," and I try to be open to feedback, and I definitely take it and change things,
mm,
but I'm also human, right? And so that part is, you're just definitely putting yourself out there for the good and the bad. So that's been a little bit, challenging sometimes. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you said it so beautifully, right? We put our heart into this course, and sometimes there is like a disconnect between what we think, is going to be the most beneficial and what folks are saying. It's the process, I think. I don't know if this is the right word, but it like humbles you in a way,
Oh
um,
yeah.
right? Because you realize, yes, like, okay, like in your case, you have a lot of knowledge. I mean, you've done hundreds, right, of immigration evals. And yet at the same time, like, there's people giving feedback of like, oh, this is helpful, this is not helpful. And there really is like this check on your ego. But I think it's also, I don't know. I think if you can kind of walk through it, it kind of humbles you, and not just like with regard to the course creation journey, but I find myself like just being like, oh my gosh, I'm like grateful for this journey, but I'm also like really humbled about how much stuff I don't know about a lot of
Absolutely.
stuff. So,
And then, I think you've called it the curse of knowledge. That happens to me all the time. Like, I'm so excited to talk about this, and I'm like zooming forward, and I'm on level, 3, and they're like, wait, what is an immigration eval? And I realize like I'm getting way too detailed, way too fast, and I'm losing people.
yep.
So balancing that out also, and hearing that honest feedback is very humbling, and also realizing like it's like, oh, I have an idea for a course, I'll put it together, and
Mm,
then that'll be that. And not realizing like the amount of time and energy and everything that goes into sort of the back end to make it look really nice and very helpful, but there's a lot of work on the back end.
yeah. Work on the back end, I think also like internal work, right? Like as you're going through and assembling all of these things, the things that come up. You said something earlier that I like wanted to just highlight because, I think for many of us, like we feel like we have to be at like some sort of, like symbolic level in order before we can create a course. But I think the reality is that I guess the best image or the image that came to mind as you were sharing was almost think of it like chapters of a book. You might be like at chapter 3 of the book, and really you're creating a course for somebody at chapter 1 and 2. You may not necessarily be creating it for somebody at 7 and 8, right? And
Yeah.
that's okay because most folks that start with online courses, it's definitely changing, but most folks are beginners in that particular area, and they're coming to you wanting a course because they're interested in this area or they're struggling in this area, and they want like the most efficient means of like understanding that topic.
Mhm. Absolutely. And, I do try to make space. So I have the course, and then people get 6 months of support with the course of like one
Mm,
on ones. And we have a group consultation. And so there, sometimes if people have to go to, chapter 3 or 4, we can delve in, but it wouldn't be fair or necessarily helpful for the whole group. Like you have people at so many different levels. So I do want to give people that opportunity, but the course itself is really starting from scratch. And I had to think about it. I tried to think about like, what do you need to know in what order? And I thought
mm.
about Legos, like you have to build this and then this and then this and then this. And sometimes the later parts are way more exciting, and I just wanted to get to the end, but it wouldn't make sense without that first part.
Yeah, I think that's like, yeah, I love the image of Legos, and I think that's like absolutely true. I want to like come back to like how you structure this because I think the reality is there are many ways to design a course. And like even the thought process around like the coaching and all that, like I definitely want to come back to. Um, you also said something a little bit earlier of like, you know, uh, just assembling the course, all the stuff that comes up. Uh, one of the most important things for me when we do these live streams is actually to just be open and honest because, and there's this thing I think in the online course space where I noticed like, everything is made to look easy and then you can almost like make money overnight from courses, all of that stuff. But for me, it's like, what's like a more realistic perspective? At least, you and
Yeah.
I are on similar kind of trajectories, right? This is year 10 for me as a course creator. And I feel like we're definitely starting to now, get momentum. And it has been
Mhm.
like this for the past couple of years, but it's not so like this, it's like more, you know, that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I had excuse me, I had no idea how long the back end would take. So just to give you some numbers, the course came out in December. The course was supposed to come out in the fall of 2018.
Mm,
And I thought, I need 2, 3 months for this. And no, I needed 6 months for that.
mm,
At the same time, I'm taking chunks and chunks of time. The first course was recorded. And I'm taking chunks and chunks of time to record and all the reality that comes with that. Like at the time, my kids were smaller and at home, so I couldn't do it I had to do it when they were in school. Inevitably, I would start recording, the landscape team would come out, or like it was hard to find time. Sometimes I was recording in the middle of the night. But I also needed to keep working. And if actually that year was really hard because I actually worked harder, I did more evals to fund, all the things that go into the startup of a course. And it doesn't have to be super complicated, but there are some infrastructure things that you need to put in place. And so I was working more while building the course. I thought it would take me 2 months, maybe and I
mm,
thought, how simple could that be? You create the slides, you record it, and send it out into the world, like done. It ended
yeah.
up taking 6 months to get it the way I wanted to. And at that point, the idea was to launch in the fall. That seemed like a good time. And then I had to make the choice, like, do I launch in December, like that first week of December, or just wait? And I was like, I'm
Mm,
like, let's just go. Like, and it's
mm,
definitely not the ideal time to launch in the middle of the holidays. But if I hadn't done it, I had already waited so long.
yeah.
So everything takes longer than you thought it would. And it didn't, I mean, the first batch of sales only helped pay what I had spent, like the
Mm,
equipment and the
yeah.
time and the website developer and all things like that. It only helped sort of like break even. And it took
Yeah.
a little while to actually start making revenue.
Um, how did you keep your heart and mind in it in those initial stages where you were building and then it was just like breaking even?
Yeah, no. Honestly, like the feedback from the students was like kept me going. People being like, "This is exactly what I needed. This is amazing. This is so helpful." I didn't have the one-on-one calls back then, but I was probably a little too generous with my time. I'd
Mm,
like talk to anybody anytime, and so they were really responsive and help, and like they were just being helped.
mm,
And then hearing their successes, being, I think someone told me. They started doing evals as part of their practice,
mm,
and they were able to in just a few months like save enough money, and they were able to travel back home to their country that they hadn't. And they took their I forget, their daughter, I think, or son, back to visit for the first time, and they were like, I wouldn't have been able to do this without this income. So that was, realizing that it's helping my students, and then by extension they're helping immigrants in their communities, kind of kept me going. And I thought, it's not perfect yet. Like we're not there yet, but my only choice is to move forward. Like I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to take a step back. So I have to just go forward from here on
mm.
out.
I think you're alluding to this like ripple wave effect of online courses, which I honestly, if I if I had known about this with podcasting, I would have been like, I don't know if I want to be like that,
Yeah.
but it's also like incredibly humbling because, like you said, your course serves others, which then serves others, and there's something I don't know about. I don't know if the right word is like, and maybe this is like a good time. One of the one of the unanticipated things about building a course is I didn't realize how it would change me and kind of as a leader, and allow me
Mm.
to, and I was wondering if like if you've had kind of a similar journey, and I can even like share a little bit, which is like there really is like nothing exceptional about me personally, and I'm quieter, like all of these things, right? I don't like the limelight, shy away from it as most therapists do, and but it's also incredibly gratifying, to be able to step into something and feel like, wow, I'm doing something that helps others that's way bigger than myself.
Yeah, that was definitely not my intention. Much like you, I'm very introverted, so much so that the first course, I didn't show my face. It was just the recording, my voice over the slides, because I was like, I can't stand to watch myself. No one
Yeah.
wants to watch me. Like, I really wanted to like talk about not being in the limelight.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think, especially like recently with this administration, I start getting all these questions like, how is this going to change our work? And I realized like, like I have the same questions, but I look around and I'm like, oh, you want me to answer? Like I'm
Right.
supposed to have the answers. And I'm happy to take that position, but it was very unexpected. And so with the recent change in administration and the new rules, a lot of people are like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I was very honest. I was like, I know no more than anyone else. I can take educated guesses based on, past behaviors, a good indication of future behavior and what's happened and the changes that we saw. But a lot of it is just sort of live changes as they happen, in real time. But it was very unexpected to be the person that people turn to. But at the same time, especially with sensitive topics, things can get out of hand very quickly. And the same negative emotions that can happen on one side of like fear and hate can really blow up, on all sides of like just it can really feed off each other. So I realized there's a lot of fear, understandably, but let's, like take it down a minute. Let's analyze what's actually happening, and I say like, I'm not in immigration policy. I do immigration evals for clients. And so how does all that affect this? And I'm an expert on this, not the other stuff. And so I've just really tried to lower the temperature on these conversations and come up with practical advice, because I think, sometimes it helps so much to know what you can do practically and
Mm.
what changes you make to make your evals more effective.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I like love everything that you shared. I think, uh, I don't know if this is what the right way to even frame this is. What have you noticed about your own like courage and leadership journey as a result of like the evolution of this course?
Yeah, no, a little bit tied to what you said, whether I like it or not, people are looking at me as leaders. So I've realized I've had to give a few more opinions that I would have been like, it doesn't matter. What does my opinion matter? Be more visible, like actually put my face on, the recording, and answer things more. I try to sort of stay out of the political arena at all, but because this is like the third, fourth administration that I've been doing this work. And some things change, but most of it remains the same. So I try to be very centered about it. And then, you are choosing how much you share of your personal opinion and how much, I really try not to. I really try to keep it very clinical. But I've had to sort of be out there more than I would have liked. Sometimes, I would have still liked to keep the camera off and just, here are my slides, good luck. But I also realize people have those questions and I'd rather them, you know, get reliable, solid information that can make an impact. So it kind of it pushed me to have to be out there a little bit more, but it's definitely not, my 100% a comfort zone.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you for saying that because, like, as a fellow person who also did not show their face on the initial recordings, because it has been quite a journey, and sometimes I think the thing is, I don't think we always get it right? But I think just the underlying courage, like if you had told me, man, like 10 years ago that I would be sharing some of these things that I am now, I would have been like, there is no way, right? But that's one of the interesting things about, I think, being a course creator is it develops you as a leader and it makes you a little bit more like thoughtfully bold. I would even say, right? Um, yeah.
One thing I will just add about that is I share my mistakes very readily. Like, hey, I tried this, it was a disaster. Like, this did not work, it did not go over well, it wasn't well received. And I'm not trying to project an image that's like perfect. And I'm so shocked when so many times people say, thank you for your vulnerability.
Mm,
And I think that's not, I mean, like, I appreciate them saying that, but it wouldn't feel genuine to me to present like, and here's my practice and everything goes perfectly and it always works out with every client and all the lawyers love me. And because that's not what happens.
yeah.
And it made me think when people started saying, thank you for your vulnerability, that I thought, this might be a rare thing. Like
Mm,
people obviously share their successes, but not everybody shares their failures and things that didn't work out.
yeah.
And I didn't start out the intention. I'm just sort of a very honest person. But that was a quality that I wouldn't say I developed because it just was, but I didn't realize would be so appreciated.
Yeah.
And being able to share. And my thought is, if I didn't do well, like don't I can share something so you don't repeat the same mistake as my
Hmm.
thinking. But I realize that not everybody is quite so transparent sometimes.
Yeah. Because I think so. This is why I also think like therapists make amazing course creators because I feel like vulnerability and just like honesty, I think, is something we've either it's like personality wise comes to us or like we've just refined through training. But I think it's really refreshing when like you present a course as okay, here are things that has worked for me, and it's not all like I don't know, like roses and whatever that
Mhm.
phrase is, right? Um, Amani had a great comment. I'll just put it here. It says, "I'm a colleague from Sudan working as a psychology manager. I'm currently residing in Egypt due to the war conditions in Sudan, and this program is useful for me." So, Amani, thank you so much for chiming in, and I think like it really speaks to the impact, right, of these courses. I mean, we are here in the U.S. doing a live stream, and Amani is, joining um, from Egypt, and it's just like I think I don't know it's like it's a very cool um, like unexpected things that come from
Yeah,
course creation.
absolutely.
Um, you alluded to it and you were sharing a little bit, but I was wondering if we could dive a little deeper, which is what was the biggest fear that you had about launching an online course?
Oh, that's simple. No one's going to buy this. Like, no one's going to buy this.
Yeah.
And I remember the night before I launched, I was like, I just want one person to buy it, like it won't be a loss. And the cart opened and like 10 minutes later someone bought it. And it's a colleague and a friend. And I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you, and I thought that's it. That's all I needed, one sale. Because I really thought like, can you imagine putting 6 months of work into something and like spending a decent amount of money and like it flops? Like I'm willing to change things, but like if it flops,
Mm,
so that was my biggest fear. Like I did all this work and it won't sell.
yeah. Same for me. Like, uh, it's what was it like for you when that first sale came through? Like, take us inside a little bit.
Oh, I just so it was like 9 in the morning. I totally remember. It was, like the cart opens at 9 or whatever. And of course I'm sitting there like refreshed, refreshed.
Of course, all of us do
Not what I
this.
recommend.
Right.
And it came in, and I just remember squealing. I was so excited. No one was home. So I just grabbed the dog and hugged the dog. And I was like, it worked. It worked. Someone bought it. I'm so excited. The dog's probably like, what is happening? I was thrilled. Like it was verification, not verification. That's not the right word. Validation
Mm,
that like, oh, this was worth it. Like this,
mm,
somebody wants this, somebody will find this of value. And then as the feedback started coming, it kind of like definitely helps, build you up and make you want to keep going for sure.
yeah. Uh, I think there's something, I don't know, there's just when you make some sort of income from a digital product, for me personally, it was a lot of like unlearning. I don't even know if that's the right word, because I think as clinicians, the model we're basically taught is like W-2 employment or private practice or like, like teaching. But it's at the core of it, it's like this trading time for income model, right? And then to realize like, whoa, like my knowledge, there's a way to like quote unquote like scale that knowledge without like
Yeah.
compromising my time in the long term. I don't know. There's something really, I don't know, empowering, liberating, and both of those words.
Yeah, there was a point, and it's a little uneven now, but there was a point that what I was selling the course for was roughly what I was charging for an eval. So I could sell a course, like I could wake up and be like, I sold a course, that's great. And of course, it doesn't happen like that. It's not magic. There's a ton of work that goes into it. Or I can sit with a client, 3 hours, hear a very difficult story, write this up. And that was 10 hours of work.
Mm.
And so I started realizing like for roughly the same income, I could be spending 10 hours and 10 difficult hours, because, we all know therapy work, trauma work is very draining, or a course that, it took a long time, but once it's there, it's there. And so that really put it in perspective when I was making about the same money doing something that took 10 hours versus selling a course.
Yeah. There's I'm gonna probably butcher this, but like I'm reading the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, which I highly recommend like everyone read. So it's a great book on sort of intersection of entrepreneurship and philosophy, and in one of those like I think again I'm gonna probably butcher this quote, but like he talks a lot about leverage and how both like media and code are like the highest forms of leverage, and I would even say like digital courses are in that sort of code, right? Like realm
Yeah.
of, you create an asset that actually makes money for you
Hmm.
independent of whether you're like physically there. I think that's like a sort of a next level, but I think many clinicians, again, because of like the multiple layers of like things that we've been told, we don't quite always arrive there. But I think it's I think more than anything, we wanted to like do this live stream just to say like, oh wow, there is like this other option.
Hmm.
Um, the I wanted to talk a little bit about. I just like made a note. I think this is true, but like I feel like most of your sales have come either primarily through your email list, um, and then like I think secondarily through your Facebook group, right? Uh,
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Building that email list over time. And that's the first thing I did is I created an email list. I didn't have a course to sell,
mm,
but I created an email list. And that's grown, probably tenfold since the time. But, and I think I've shared this with you, saying anything immigration related during an election year is a fast way to get yourself banned on social media. Even though
mm,
I would try to, like, I couldn't run Facebook ads. I was running Facebook ads for the course in 2020. It was a disaster. Like everything was shut down. I want to think it's unrelated, but in the fall, I was about to do another launch, and I got locked out of Facebook.
mm,
I think I shared this. And so it's like a month before the launch, and all this ads that I could have run, not even ads, but like just promoting it in the Facebook group, nobody could get in. And had not my list, I would have, I would have had no one to sell to. So social media is nice, and it's definitely helpful to promote things, and it's helpful to get people on your list, but that list is golden.
mm,
And everyone's like, oh, but social media, does it really matter? And I got to do the trial unexpectedly of
mm.
doing a launch without social media, without a big chunk of social media, and it did okay. It did fine. Um, and so that can happen to anybody. Like social media is great for so many things, but it can be taken away because we don't own it. And so I really understood the power of my own email list. And you're absolutely right. I think the last time I looked, I think it was like 90% of sales had come through people on my email list.
Yeah, and I think ours is very similar. I think 92% of 93% of anything we've ever sold has come through our email list, and it's just fascinating. I feel like social media is a way to for us to kind of share our message at
Hmm.
scale, but by and large, I think if you can start to concurrently build an email list related to your course topic, I think what you'll find is your most you like your quote unquote super fans are usually on that email list. The folks that trust you enough to, give you their email address and you just show up in their inbox. And I had a very similar process with when we had our Facebook group. We actually closed it down a couple of years ago, but among those decisions to close it down was because I noticed like the reach of Facebook, like these groups were going down so significantly. And I know we're talking about Facebook specifically, but I think this is the truth with all of these
Oh yeah,
platforms because you're at the mercy of an algorithm, right?
right.
And you just don't know what's hot, what's popular, when a video will pop, like any of these things, and trying to rely on an external thing, I think, to sell your course, I think um, it might work once or twice, but I think from a long term perspective, it's not always the best strategy.
Yeah, and I got lucky because when I started my Facebook group, I think they had just started groups, so it was kind of a new thing, and they were really promoting them. And so I got a lot of people quickly. But then, like, they moved on to the next great thing, and it's like if I had only relied, you'd be like, "What about my group that you
Yeah.
were really promoting?" And then they moved on to their next thing, and I think we need to learn how to use it as best we can to
Yeah.
sort of facilitate growing our list. And it is great for sharing the message and sort of introducing people to things. But I certainly learned that you certainly cannot rely on it, and it's not necessary either.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of nice because I feel like most clinicians have a lot of hate with social media. So it's kind of nice to just have, be able to correspond on an email
Right.
list as well. I wanted to shift a little bit over. So, you've been part of our main mastermind and now you're part of our established mastermind, which
Yeah.
is like, our like selective mastermind for therapists like who already have courses out in the world. Just even thinking about it. And again, just like I want you to share kind of an honest answer. Like, what made you sign up for the mastermind? Like, how did you see it as like the best option to help you?
I know that all this work, even private practice, can be very lonely. And like, I think the more niche you become, like, the less people there are to talk about the sort of challenges that we had. I had looked into some therapy groups in terms of like mastermind type things of business owners, but they were all private practice owners. And I was like, that's not exactly what I need help with. And then for a while, I was in a mastermind for business owners. And that was definitely not what I needed because it was like hustle, hustle, hustle. What's your next goal? And you get it and you smash the goal. And I was like, I'm not smashing anything. And I don't need to be a bazillionaire. Like, I need to be comfortable, and I have goals for my family, and I'd like to travel, but I don't need, like, I always want my work to be a means to an end. Like, it can't be my entire identity. I mean, I love what I do, but there's an entire life outside of it, and it has to help support that life. It can't be my only thing, and it can't be about, like, hustle, like that, like hustle and grind. Like, that's definitely not for me. And so when you opened up your group, I thought, this is perfect because it's by a therapist. So, like, what we're dealing with, our limitations, even with marketing and things like that. And it's not that hustle culture, which I had no interest in. The reason I love this work is the flexibility, the time. And what do I do with that time? I don't go out there and make more courses. Like, I spend it with my family, or I travel, or I see friends, or, a million other, or I rest, like, which is sort of taboo in this culture now, but I rest a lot. And so it was sort of the perfect mix of, you had a lot of business knowledge, but with that clinical perspective that there was just nowhere else to talk about these kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing all of that. I think uh, I feel like the members make the mastermind, right? Like our collective energy. But I think one of the most important things for us was, again, I've also been in other groups and mentors, and I've learned a lot. But then I think it's also made me realize, like, okay, I don't think I fully resonate with that sort of like hustle grind, identity becomes tied to like a financial goal, and if you don't hit it somehow, like you're not a good business owner or any of these things. Because, for example, like maybe you have a newborn at home, and there's only certain things that you can do, or you're caring for somebody that's like a loved one, right, or something like that. And I think that's been one of the most like refreshing parts of our mastermind, is just to have people that think deeply about stuff, people that are like successful and driven, but it's like a thoughtful drivenness.
Yeah, I really like that as a group, and people come and people go, so it kind of changes, which is also really nice. But we have redefined what success means for us, and so people cheer us on when it's like I was able to take a week off, or I was able to, be there for my daughter's ballet performance or whatever it is, and that's the success. And we're not sharing like income goals, and we're at this level, and we've been able to redefine success in a way that everyone is a little bit different, but we're not putting top value on making a certain money goal.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys are watching this live stream and this idea is like really resonating for you, there's a great book called The Company of One. Why staying small could be like the next big thing in business, or something like that. I think it's the subtitle, and I think it alludes to a lot of these sort of values of like, okay, looking at, okay, what is the actual revenue that you need to produce. And even this idea, which I think, especially in Western society and even Western entrepreneurship, is like so foreign, which is walking away from perfectly good opportunities because you know that it's not actually, you realize the compromises you would have to make to get there, and that's not worth the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
Um, what was again even thinking about like some more recent conversations and things that we've navigated, what was an unexpected like situation that has come up just with your course journey, and how has like kind of just being part of the mastermind helped with it?
So I'll quickly say too, the first one recent one right at the beginning, it was very clear that it was like everyone very kindly and gently was like, you need to show your face. You need to, this just can't be slides. Like you have to be more dynamic. And I was like, no, but I don't know. And so like between that idea and then it's like, okay, I have to be here, but how do I get there? And everyone was super helpful, not just like, some of it was really like tech stuff that I didn't know, but some of it was like confidence and how do you present and how to take breaks and, all that stuff that was helpful. I think more recently, it's one of these issues that come up and it was sort of like refund related. And it was just really helpful to talk to everybody and have different perspectives. And what I love is in that group, there's always going to be someone that's a little further ahead of you and then someone that's just more of a beginner. And I especially like the people who are starting out because they haven't done this as long. And so they have a totally fresh perspective and things that I might think like, no, that's impossible. They're like, why? Why not? And so I really appreciate, like, wasn't a huge issue, but having perspectives of different people was incredibly helpful to sort of navigate that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is one of the cool things with the mastermind, is that we have folks, Cecilia said, like that are new, that are a little bit further ahead, and then that are seasoned. And in all ways, because I think generally, we try to do a really good job of like trying to get the right therapist to join our mastermind. You really like have people that are just like kind and high integrity and humble enough to be like, yeah, that's a really good point, versus like fighting about, so since I had one final question for you, what's something encouraging that you would share with a colleague who's watching and thinking about launching an online course, and even maybe even thinking about joining the mastermind, but is kind of torn about it?
I would just definitely say do it. I probably thought about starting doing a course for a year before I actually did it. And now I'm like, oh, I could have done it. I mean, of course, things happen when they happen, but there's no reason to hold back. Like more and more, we are all looking for online education in various forms. And I just think back, like, you have something unique that the world definitely needs. And so don't don't hold back. Like, definitely join, definitely take that step forward. Again, I wish I had done it a little bit earlier, but once you get going, you realize, it's very validating to realize how much of a need there is for your particular area of expertise. And even if you think, oh, this is something a lot of people teach about, like, but everyone teaches it differently, and your own sort of flavor or take on it can be that final thing that clicks with someone else that might not have wanted to take a course on that. So I would definitely encourage you to just take that first step and at least try.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also just in this world of AI where like content creation, all this stuff is like much easier. I think those of us that have these nuanced courses where we like go really deep into it, I think that's the stuff that people are craving because like
Mhm.
everything it seems to be like more kind of service level kind of stuff. So
Yeah. And I think, to tap really quickly into AI, like I saw someone recently be like, well, couldn't you just tell AI what to, ask in an evaluation? And it's like, maybe, but the part you need clinicians for is like, and what do you do when that person answers a certain way?
mm, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I think that that's something that, and all the hundreds of things that you can imagine, not even challenges, but like forks in the road. It's really helpful to have someone to talk those through with.
yeah, absolutely. I've got the your website, immigrationevaluationinstitute.com, here up on the screen. Uh, if folks want to learn more about like what's the best place to start? I know you've got this starting,
Yeah.
like where can folks start?
I mean, in that blue band, it says join our newsletter. So that's a really easy one. But I think that quick start guide, which is free, is probably the best like overview of like, what is an immigration evaluation? Who can do them? Do I need to be bilingual? What are the different kinds? What kind of training do I need? Like all the like basic questions I just put together in a guide. And so that will be a really good step to even like learning, what is this about? And
Mm.
would this be a good fit?
Yeah, absolutely. And then if folks want to learn about the course is like right up here under
Mhm.
courses and then comprehensive immigration evaluations. Um, Cecilia, I'm just so grateful for you. Grateful, that we have been able to connect and grateful for this time. If you guys were able to join us for the live stream, thank you so much. I know how busy all of our lives are, especially as we get into 2025. And so, thank you for doing this for us. And I and again, if you're watching this on replay, thank you again for taking time and definitely connect with Cecilia. I know you're active on social channels as
Yeah.
well, so you've got your Facebook group as well.
Mhm. Yep.
Um,
Immigration evaluation therapist, and then I'm on, my name Cecilia Racine on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. Sounds good. Definitely connect with Cecilia as well. Cecilia, thank you again and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Bye
All right.
bye.
Bye.